Welcome to the We the Patriots podcast. Today, I am your host, Sal Sante, and I've been looking to do this show for a little while now. It's going to be exciting, and today we're talking all about the economy, and more specifically, why you might not see economic growth or real change in the economy, even when you see big stock market numbers, or when you see stock market plummet and your life doesn't really change. We're going to talk a little bit about that today and what you might be hearing a lot of, especially nowadays, politicians saying on their campaign trails heading into this election season and what to look out for. Again, I'm your host, Sal Sante, and today we're going to have a fun show. Let's get right to it. So I'm by no means economist anyway, studied in the field. I love the idea of money and how money works. Read at least a decent amount about it, I could say, and I think I can give an opinion here that is at least decent for the layman. And to me, this is a question that comes up all the time, at least in my head. I like to think about it. Why is the stock market disconnected from the economy? What is the difference too? So we're going to get into all that today and more. I just want to give a quick shout out. If you haven't gone and seen the last episode that we dropped, interview with John Marshall, I highly recommend you go take a look at that. It was one of our best shows together as I interviewed him, but I think one of the most informative. Really brought to light a lot of the reasons that our political atmosphere is the way that it is now, and kind of how all the craziness that we're seeing isn't really all that crazy when you look back on it. So again, huge shout out to that show. I will link it in the description. I hope you guys go take a look. Now, today we're going to talk all about the economy. And really, I want to start first with what is a stock market? So forget about the economy. The stock market is one of the most fascinating pieces of American culture, I would say. And of course, now it's worldwide. What is it, though? And this is where you have to disconnect it from the economy. All right. So generally speaking, the only companies that are going to have stocks listed publicly for us, the public, to buy. We have the right as Americans now to just set up an account, go and start buying stock of company just with your own money. Start leveraging that, get into a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But what the core is that you are putting your capital behind a business to use your capital in order to make more money. And in turn, by being an investor, you are going to get paid either a dividend or the stock price itself is going to go up. Okay, I hope that you have that understanding going in, but if you don't, of course, message me, leave a comment. I'll try to do my best to explain, or hopefully someone can get down here. And I am absolutely sure I'm going to stumble or make a mistake today, so let me know where I'm wrong. Don't just go out and call me an idiot or stupid, because I damn well know I'm not an economist, not trying to impress anybody with this. Just trying to answer a core question that I myself had. If you go look up this question, what's the difference between the market and the economy? There's only like one or two videos that are really trying to be honest about it. And even they are videos from an investor's point of view, trying to get you to buy into the market. I'm not trying to get you to buy into anything. I'm talking about this from a purely political standpoint. So, and for a reason, of course, to put this out to you guys. I hope that everybody engages in this and wants to learn more about money, how it works. I know I do. I love to learn more and more every day about anything that comes across my plate. But this thing it's hard if you're not in the mood, I would say, to pay attention to economics. And it's because you get lost in numbers. I'm a big math guy. I loved and still love when I invest, and you see your investment paying off, or certain investments maybe not, and having to shift positions or holding when the times get tough. All of that is taking risk, and that's what the stock market's all about. It is about trying to spread your risk as an investor, as an American, as a person in the economy, and trying to grow what you already have. Now, the stock market, in its way of being very risky, being an investment, it's not going to be the thing that you're looking at for the general economic health of a nation. And that's where you're going to get into a little bit more statistics. And this is another defining feature, I would say, between the economy itself and the stock market. And that is that the stock market is very reactive and is talking about things projecting, okay, talking out into the future, saying we think that because this company is doing XYZ today, they are worth this today. It may not be exact value. It might be saying we're expecting them to grow in 5 years. We're expecting them to grow in 3 years. We're expecting them to stay stagnant, but they own enough of the market, right? So these different things, this is what goes into an investment in the stock market and one particular stock, say, or an issued stock. Now, when you start talking about economy, you're talking about statistics like growth rate, okay, unemployment, consumer confidence. All of these different aspects of an economy are talking about things that have already happened, right? You're talking about surveys, you're having to collect data, you're having to put together these things that are all based on facts that, again, already happened. Sometimes you're getting this data a year, 2 years in advance. Sometimes they're not even, for example, able to tell that we are in a recession until we are a year, 2 years into it already, right? And this is because so much of the data needs to come back before they can make this assessment properly. Okay. What you hear, this is where it ties into everyday life, especially now in 2024. Again, in 2028, it already happened in 2020, is when they start talking about the economy. And I really want to use this episode to beat both sides on the head. So I hope that you can appreciate that at least. Both of the parties, Democrat and Republican, and any politician that you hear, is trying to talk to you. Now, I'm not saying that they're stupid, but they're trying to talk to you as if you're stupid on the economy. They're really trying to dumb it down. And what they do is actually make it kind of disingenuous, I would say, in their approaches to solving the problems that we have economically, speaking as a nation. Because you don't need to think very hard, in my opinion, to try to start to solve our economic problems. All right, I'll just list a few right now. Start lowering the debt. Stop using money that we don't have. Cut programs to do so. You can limit entitlements, all these different things that you can go to cutting costs. You can do that. You can try to start making profitable trade deals, right? You could do stuff with the not the inflation rate. Of course, you can do that, but you could start adjusting your interest rates, right? So these different things, if they were honest about it, are what the different measures that you would hope that a sane person would take when they're talking about maybe helping out the American economy. How they're really talking from both sides is, again, like you're stupid. And I will take the Republican side point of view first. If you listen to the first 5-10 minutes of the show so far, what you got is that the economy is very different from the stock market. Well, what both sides will do is try to make that argument off the stock market. The stock market performance was booming under my administration. The stock market tanked under my opponent's administration, or it would tank under their administration, right? And making these assumptions. And part of the problem that goes into that I haven't mentioned yet is there is really a percentage of our society that even invests in any part of the stock market. And that percentage is not a majority. So the average working person is not investing on the level that these politicians, frankly, are speaking on it. They are much higher income people. They have much more money on the side to invest. And so they are in the stock market a heck of a lot more. And by being a politician, they have access to a lot of information that might allow them to make good investments. Just go look at Nancy Pelosi's following on Twitter. I believe they have a stock tracker for Nancy Pelosi and many other politicians at this point, because the records have to be public. So this is where they miss you, I would say, as a voter. And I hope that you all see that. When Donald Trump goes and says we had the best stock market numbers and stock market got up to a record high before this clown, Joe Biden, or talking to Kamala now, he's pointing them out as the losers who lost the stock market. When in reality, the stock market is just it's really just an indice of really well-performing businesses. A lot of the stock market is made up of what they call that Magnificent Seven, which is a whole bunch of tech companies. You're talking about Google, Amazon, right, Meta, all these different companies that make up this tech sphere. God forbid, or if ever this tech bubble, I would say, bursts, the average stock price is tremendously down. I mean, you're talking about possibly the Dow being what is now around 40,000. You could be talking about a $25,000 Dow without question if all tech stocks really got brought down to a level, if you say, look back to the dot-com bubble. So stock market is so relative. And one of the best things that I ever read in regards to the stock market, and I hope this kind of puts into perspective what Donald Trump sees in the stock market. He's got a lot of money invested in stocks, I can guarantee you. Also a lot in real estate, of course. But when you're talking about stocks, all right, this is from, see if I can remember this off the top of my head. I believe it's Benjamin Graham. I'm going to go look it up just to make sure. Okay, I was correct. Okay, Benjamin Graham. And he wrote the book, The Intelligent Investor. Now, this is one of the best books that I ever read. You have to have a mindset like we're at this episode right here. You already made it 10 minutes. I guarantee you might be interested in this book. There's a good damn chance. So if you are, if you're hearing anything that you like, this is a paraphrase from the book, we'll say. You have to view the market as your crazy neighbor. Your crazy neighbor always putting his house up for sale. Now, sometimes he's going to put that house up and he just screams out a number, but sometimes it's just way too high, and sometimes it's way too low, and sometimes it's pretty fair market value. Now, if you're looking at your neighbor as a possible investment opportunity, you're going to come out and you're going to wait for that day that he says that price that you know you've done your research and that is well below the market value. And when he says that number and you're going to agree to it, that's how you have to act in the stock market. And obviously, timing investments is a fool's errand, but the whole point of what was being said is that you can't trust what the market is on any given day. It might be reacting to news that's 3 days old. It might be reacting to news that it's anticipating to come out, right? It's pricing in so many things at the same time. That's why you see a number possibly vary by, if you're talking about we'll say an Amazon stock before it split up, talking about thousands of dollars, and you might see a percentage change and the stock goes up or down $40, $50 in 30 minutes, and you don't know where that money went. Well, it's all based on so many different numbers being compiled, so many different people that are buying in, selling out at the same time, and it's all influencing the stock price is basically what it comes down to. And all of that is to say that has nothing to do with the real economy. It is so disconnected from the real American feeling, or if you're talking about any other country, Spain, Germany, China, anybody, any person who's experiencing the economy or is thinking about how things are going economically, especially personally for them at that moment, they're not thinking about the stock market, even if they are thinking about, if they're a day trader. In reality, if times are tough, it's because the economy is reading, generally speaking, on a lesser term. And this is where I would hope that politicians kind of re-target, right? Because now you're going to talk about the mistakes that are being made really on both sides again, but we're going to get into one way of speaking that I think is so detrimental to understanding how economics works and dumbs it down to the point without any understanding. But first, I'm going to just take a quick break. Hey guys, just wanted to thank you for stopping in on the episode. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like, leave a comment below, and let us know how you feel about the episode. Go check us out on our website, wethepatriotsmedia.com. Got some good stuff over there for you, and you can just check in on the episodes. Not have to be on these platforms. Whatever you want to do. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and let's get right back to the show. One of the biggest issues that I see when you're talking about where the Kamala campaign, keep calling her Kamala campaign with Harris and Walz campaign. Now we have good old Governor Walz, Tim Walz in there. Call him Tampon Tim now. Go look up that story. I think it's kind of funny. Their campaign, or at least what came out, I don't know if it's through leaks, might have been a presser that she did, finally taking a few questions that I saw, which is good for her. The only problem is usually when she talks, there's stuff that comes out of her mouth that you can't comprehend if you're really trying to think about saving the country. And one of the things is that she started going off on the economy and proposing different things that she might do to stimulate what is viewed as a stagnant economy, which is funny because she's been the vice president for 4 years and hasn't really done much to help this. If anything, has possibly signed in legislation, which would be going back to the called the Anti-Inflation Act or Stop Immigration, something childish. Sign that into law and presiding over one of the highest inflationary periods of the United States history. But beside me, what she was saying is basically that she would like to price control items. She wants to make sure that companies can't price gouge. Now, what she's really doing with this is, again, price control. And when you're introducing price control as a serious talking point on the national stage, not having really anything to back it up, just saying I'm going to do this because it's right, people shouldn't be paying XYZ, Another one that she came out with, which is verified, is she was going to help out with down payments on homes, just giving it first time home buyers $25,000 to go put a down payment on a home. Okay, what both of these policies, because they're the same thing, it's price control. What both of them are talking about, it's sad that an American politician is going to put this in front of the American public and think that we are too stupid, but we might be. We might be not smart enough to vote away from this. I don't know, but to not understand that when you put price controls in like that, you actually make the situation worse. So in the first example, when you're talking about, we'll say groceries or gas, we're just going to put an X limit on what we would sell for. Well, immediately what you're going to do, regardless of what the item is or is not worth, is you're going to create an instance of extremely high demand, more than likely, for a product and not much supply. Okay, so what the suppliers are going to see is that my earnings on this item or these items are capped. If I keep producing these items at the same rate, I don't know what I'm going to be paid, but more than likely it's going to be legislated at a less than market value. If it's less than market, all the things that are priced in for companies to, let's say, make the price of a head of broccoli, right, or a gallon of gasoline, what these companies have priced in as profitable has already been priced in. All right, so if you're just going to tell them, dead stop on this date, you have to start charging this and no more than that, well, what those suppliers are going to do is they're going to start supplying a different product until that product again is legislated against. Now, the discussion about housing is a little bit different. First of all, when you talk about rent control, which she has talked about as well, aside from the down payment help, rent control has the same end goal, or the same result, I should say, as our first scenario when we talk about groceries, talking about gas, is that, well, those companies that have that money are just going to shift those over to assets where they are not capped in their profitability, right? Because you're always looking about projectable profitability, and the government's always going to lag in trying to adjust their rates. So you know that if they instill price control, they're going to be 5 to 10 years behind eventually, if not right away, and you're going to have people who just can't afford to live. Now, when you talk about housing itself, talking about down payments, you have actually a little bit different outcome. Generally the same principle. The prices are going to eventually go up. Talk about items, we'll say that head of broccoli that person can no longer sell at the supermarket. Well, they might still produce it, or they might have to sell off their excess before they switch over. And in doing so, what's going to be created is a black market, because if somebody else knows the value of the product and the buyer knows the value of the product, they can't get it at the supermarket because nobody has it anymore. Well, that price just went up. You made prices worse, and it's going to be sold on the black market. You're not going to get tax revenue from that. So you just ruined your whole plan for the entire process. Now, housing is a little bit different only because of the down payment, right? So if it was price control, that would be the same issue, but we are talking about interjecting cash at that time. So what people fail to understand, and this is becoming more and more prevalent in our society, is that when you increase the baseline of anything, the end of the line just goes up. So the whole reality is you actually just made it so much less attainable for people to get the houses that they want, to get the gasoline that they want, all because you instituted something with the sole purpose of making it more affordable to that person. So what's going to happen with that? Well, you give $25,000 extra to a first-time home buyer, and at the end of the day, that house has just risen in $25,000 in cost, right? And you might be saying, oh, well, they get a 30-year mortgage, they'll be able to put that. That's all well and great. Again, interjecting $25,000 for every first-time home buyer. Those prices are now going to accept that $25,000 pitch-in, right? And they're just going to adjust accordingly. Well, I need to charge $25,000 more in order to make up for this. For that next house, think about it. If it's an investor, I know people love to hate on landlords nowadays, but if it's a property investor, if it's somebody who's flipping houses, they need that extra $25,000, right? Because every single agent and their mother is going to be selling with that baseline principle of having that $25,000 additional down payment. Well, now that contractor who's going to go and fix up this shitty house in a shitty neighborhood is going to have to pay $25,000 more, all because of an incentive program aimed at helping new home buyers. So again, they talk to you, or at least in my opinion, they talk to you as if you are stupid, as if you don't understand the consequences of their actions and their policies. And I hope that that's not the truth. Now, I just did a whole whammy session on Democrats and Kamala, but don't think that Trump is snaking out of these weeds, because he does something, in my opinion, that is just as stupid. Okay, two things. Number one is his proposed policy on electric vehicles, specifically coming from China. So basically what it is a buddy-buddy deal with Tesla, because we all know that Chevy, Ford, their electric vehicles are just not up to snuff, especially when you're talking about comparing to Tesla. Now, Tesla has huge market share. Now they have basically the market captured when it comes to charging and whatnot. So it's really almost a monopoly sort of situation there. But the problem is when you're comparing our item cost, just electric vehicle to electric vehicle to China, they could produce at such a lower rate, and the efficiency, the ability of them to just pump them out is insane. So what they've done already is that they've imposed a 100% tariff. So that is saying, or 100% sanctions, saying that any electric vehicle coming in from China to the United States, if it's purchased by anybody here, they need to pay an 100% increase in price. And that's what keeps Tesla competitive in the market, because if there was not that tariff or that sanction, then we wouldn't have really many Teslas on the road. People make the economic choice and get the Chinese car. Now, is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? You can make your own argument. You could be saying an argument saying we don't want to allow Chinese infrastructure that much into our grid at that high of a pace, and if they're able to cut the costs, and I can understand that. That being said, what Trump has proposed, or what he's supposedly has already proposed, is that they would like to hike that 100% increase up to a 200% increase. So somebody who's paying for a $30,000 Tesla pays the $33,000, gets the $9,000 rebate. They only pay $28,000, $27,000, we'll say, at the end of the day for their car, somewhere around there. Cool. If somebody wants to buy this Chinese car that's $20,000, under Trump's new plan, supposedly we would have to pay $60,000 in order to purchase that car that we all know is $20,000 vehicle. It should be less than Tesla, and you do not, if I'm not mistaken, you do not receive the same rebate, if any rebate, on an electric vehicle that's not purchased as a United States provider. So, with that being the case, that's one instance, and I want to talk a little bit more specifically about sanctions, tariffs. Now, when you talk about sanctions, a little bit different, embargoes, so not allowing a certain product in, maybe based on international behavior or just a will of the country, right? You think like Cold War, you think of the United States under Trump from 16 to 20 when he was handling Russia, putting lots of sanctions on China for trade. What it actually is, if you're not actually stopping the product from coming into the country and you're still allowing it, what it really is a tax on Americans. So I want you all to understand that, and it is still an economic weapon used by the Democrats all the time. They just don't talk about it. But this is the honest truth. Tariffs, sanctions, they actually hurt the American consumer. They don't hurt the company overseas, right? They're charging their price. They may have to pay a tax in order to make that sale, but that tax is not imposed on you. I would think that a lot of you people, if you're listening to this show, you're pretty educated. I would think you want to call me a dumbass by now, but most of you probably understand that cost, if any company is given an extra cost on their ledger, they don't pay that cost. That cost immediately goes down to the customer. They have to find a way to get that cost out of the customer. They're not just going to willingly take an expense on themselves and pay out of their pocket. If anybody knows basically anything about any sort of business or conducting a business, you can't have that expense just come out of cash. It's a very rare instance, and it's a Mayday scenario in most instances when that does happen. So that price automatically gets shoved to consumers. You have to take into account when Trump is saying we're going to hit Russia hard, we're going to hit China hard with sanctions. They're not going to know what hit them. They're not going to be able to fight back. Well, in reality, they're going to be earning just the same money. The only problem is the American consumer going to be able to stomach that cost, right? How bad do they want the item? If you're only doing it for electric vehicles and the rest of the items are not really that taken care of, well, what you're basically asking is, again, all Americans just to pay a higher price. When it comes down to it, if we're being completely honest about the scenario, American manufacturing is in the pooper right now. We're not in a good place. We don't make a lot of things here at home, and the reason being is that cost is extremely high. When you're going back onto another huge factor in economic health is the labor costs. And labor costs have skyrocketed across all industries. And the reason being is that you're talking mainly about labor and trying to make up for it. This is where I can't understand, I can't fathom price control. Okay. In a very specific scenario. Here in New Jersey, because I live here, I can give this as a wholehearted firsthand account. Since I started working, since the age of 14, the minimum wage has doubled. Okay, I believe when I started working, it was $7.25. Might not have actually got my job till it was $8.25, but regardless, it has doubled. It's over $15 an hour now. When you have that much of an increase in the base, when the least valuable person in your society has been bumped up by 100%, you have now made the cost of living for everybody else 100% higher. It may not happen today, may not happen tomorrow, may have already happened, in which our case it is. And now you're looking at a situation where now 15 doesn't seem like enough, now you need to go up to 20. And then we're going to price control on top of that. This is where you get into real economics. You're no longer talking about a stock market. And I wish that, of all people, Donald Trump, the person who you are supposed to view as the billionaire, the mogul, the guy who can really make it happen with money, I wish he would talk about it in a way for us to understand a little bit better what he's trying to do. Because from the outside looking in, from what it seems like to someone who's very laissez-faire in economics, I don't really understand much, but I understand enough, I think, to get myself by. What I can understand is that talk about the stock market as if it's the economy, and that's the health of the economy. Well, I'm not stupid. I know that's not the truth. And I would hope that Donald Trump, I would hope that Kamala Harris, I would hope that RFK, one of these people comes out and makes an adamant point that we were talking about the unemployment rate. We want to make sure that our GDP is heading in a better direction. Our debt to GDP ratio needs to get better. These different items that we are really, seems like, not paying attention to anymore. We're going for the glitz and glamour things. It's disheartening. Again, when they talk to you about economics, when they talk to you as if you're too stupid to understand what price controls are, I encourage you to go read a little bit. Go find out, right? Again, I've read a few books. I know a couple of things, but I'm stupid when it comes to economics. I'm not an economist by any way, shape, or form. And definitely have a lot of cleaning up to do on my thinking on this. But one thing that I do know is that interjecting money that shouldn't be there in an economy makes the economy worse. There's only a certain amount that the economy can take. When you have an economy that's as efficient as the American economy, you can weather storms, but a constant barrage and a constant borrowing against something that just, again, isn't there, it gets to a point where we're headed for a real downturn, and it's not being allowed to happen because XYZ, people want to maintain their retirement accounts, all this different stuff. But again, we go back to the Magnificent Seven, the amount of tech companies that are a part of what makes up the entirety of the U.S. stock market, and in turn, a lot of people's perceptions of the U.S. economy. I don't know what else to tell you. If that's how you base your life, that's how you base how you feel the economy is working, then I guess you do you. But in reality, I would hope that we can get to a better point. And this is kind of what I'm asking for. Again, I'm going to lay it out. We need to make sure that we're paying attention to things like consumer confidence, people confident spending in the market, right? Do we have a debt to GDP ratio that is respectable right now? Talk about debt to GDP. We are realistically not looking like we're in a great spot. Again, I can't really read these charts, but being as though we are in the same talking space as Singapore, Italy, France, Spain, those don't sound like nations that are fantastically economically well off. And if we're in that same talking range of these kind of countries, we have some thinking to do. Again, we can go back to unemployment rate, that of which we're pretty competitive with, but you can kind of overanalyze that. How manipulated is employment rate? How many people have two jobs that are making up for people who don't? These type of things got to be considered when you're looking at these bigger numbers too, and how much stuff can get fiddled with. there's one podcast that I wish that everybody would listen to if you are a sports fan, right? If you're not a sports fan, you might as well not bother. But if you are a sports fan, please go listen to Nothing Personal, David Sampson. And one of the best people at explaining the back end of business and specifically baseball, what goes on. But broader point that I'm making is his insight when it comes to a publicly traded company, his insight, because this is where his family comes from, is almost second to none. And understanding that there's a lot of things that go into what makes a report for a big company, for a team, right? How do you show that you were profitable? Maybe you were at a loss this year. Maybe you were break even. There's different ways for you to manipulate that stuff once you get bigger and bigger as a corporation, what you're going to show. That's when I started thinking about, well, this is one of the people that opened my eyes up to the fact that when you're looking at the stock market, you're really looking at a whole bunch of hopes and dreams. And a lot of people, again, that crazy neighbor shouting out prices and are you going to buy today? That's what it comes down to. And if you can get to that way of thinking about the stock market, I think it kind of moves you from thinking about that as the economy and what you should really be paying attention to, what kind of things might affect the economy, right? Again, talking about one side of the aisle allegedly right now proposing a higher minimum wage without a doubt. And on top of that higher minimum wage, entitlements for everybody, which is more free things, more things that are given out on the government's dollar, more money that will need to be eventually printed, right? And on top of that, talking about price control. So you're going to increase the amount of money that the average person makes without helping out the business owner, which is realistically, if you wanted to see that policy work, that's what you have to do. You have to work with the business owners in order to stomach that increase in price that hits them like a brick on this day. Then, on top of that, without all that help to the business owner, you're now going to cap the price that they could charge. Seems like a person, in my opinion, that is in a flooded cave and is getting pushed to the top. The water keeps coming up. They keep running out of air. And I think that's where we're at with the amount of controls that are coming from the left-hand side of the economy. Now, only talking about the left right now, as that water comes up, we're gasping for air. It's going to be on us as the American people to realize that there is not a way out up here, and we have to swim down and try to get out of the cave another way. Now, when it comes to the right-hand side, this is where it gets more complex because, in my opinion, a lot of the conservatives nowadays are really okay with most of the change that has happened and will continue to happen on the left-hand side as long as it happens at their agreed terms. Are they able to profit on it? That's how I think a lot of the right views things, and it's not very helpful when you've come to a scenario like ours where entitlements, things like Social Security, have become such detriments on society that they need to be seriously considered as limbs that may need to be cut off when talking about surviving as an economy going forward. And they just aren't talked about that way anymore, unfortunately. If anything, I believe that both Joe Biden and Trump last time, talk about 2020 here, both of them were running ads against each other saying, he wants to cut Social Security. No, he wants to cut Social Security. And going back and forth. And it was just like, okay, we've lost the point here because the average American, or at least a significant amount of them that are, we'll say, under 40, we know damn well that our Social Security ain't going to mean dick in accordance to what we're going to have to pay every month just to live. So a lot of us just wanted to get cut. And, being that 80-year-old, talking to those 80-year-olds as those people, they're framing their mindset around something that is no longer the average American. I hope that we head in a better direction with this. I hope that this episode was helpful. I strayed off track and made it very political, but that was kind of the point, is to talk about how we're going to feel it nowadays. I want you to let me know in the comments how I did with this, what I got wrong, because I definitely got stuff wrong. I missed out on some terms. We talked about interest rates a little bit. Didn't talk too much about economic terms, I would say. Quantitative easing is a fun one. Really what it is just blowing cash into the economy at a managed rate. I don't think I want to dive into that today. I think I gave you a base enough understanding. If there's anything to take away from the episode today, I really just hope you understand that when they talk to you as if you're stupid, whether that be that the stock market is the entirety of the economy, or whether that's saying that controlling the prices of goods or putting economic tariffs, sanctions on other nations is actually a benefit to the consumer, when it's really just a benefit to them. They make more money. End of the day, we are going to make a decision that's based on our core values and what we see as the future of the nation heading into this election in 2024. And I really don't think it's as dire as everybody's making it out to be. It never is. I think that at the end of 4 years after this, there will be another election. Now, how fair that election will be to be determined. But that being said, it's not the end of the world. If your candidate doesn't win, so be it. Okay, I outlined a few different cases in this episode alone, and I have been for months, that both candidates have their issues. I think that both of them, when you're talking about the headlining candidates, forget about RFK. Both leading candidates are just unfortunately not the best representatives of the nation, I would say. In both cases, you're not maybe able to say that as much about Kamala, and that's because of who she is. It's unfortunate, but if we're just being honest, the most qualified people in the nation are running pretty successful corporations, and they have much better things to do. Just so happens that these two people are at the top of the ticket. All right, again, talked about many instances today. Both really have flaws, I would say, and this is just coming from an idiot in economics. There's 50 other thousand ways that you can attack these guys, and I just talked to them very strictly on the things that I know, things that I keep hearing, and things that I want you all to know. Heading into this election, to me, being totally honest on the show on this year, I don't think the economy is much different under Trump or Kamala. I don't think there's really much of a difference at all. Now, what I do think there will be a little bit, and this happened with Trump when he first got in 2016, is there will be a bump of confidence because people think that just Trump is an economic man. Things will come back down to reality at some point, but I think that realistically speaking, the trajectory of the nation, they're going to head in the same direction at the end of the day. I don't think that price control is going to be allowed in. I mean, I'm sorry, but I just don't think that's going to be allowed. I think that eventually, I don't think now, but eventually, when the bear becomes too big and we are about to get crushed by it, we will start talking about entitlements. So I think that will eventually come. But right now, it's all going to be the same. Trump gets in, we're going to have way more national debt than when he started. I can guarantee you that. And the same will be said for Kamala. Hope you all have a very good week. I will get back to you probably next week, maybe the week after. I think I got vacation coming up soon. So hope all is well with you guys and the fam. Let me know how it was in the comments, and don't be too hard on me. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.
I wish I were the fucking state. I wanna be something, not nothing. Trapped inside my dream and I'm running away from these demons. But the feeling's so good, I'ma keep dreaming.